I'm a guy that's 26. Each day I build with bricks. I like Star Wars playset. I'm Rich Boy J. Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here back with another video, and this is going to be yet another episode of Your Questions Answered. If you're unfamiliar with the series, this is a Q&A series on the channel where I answer your questions. If you want to have one of your questions answered, leave it in the comment section below. Make sure it is Lego, Star Wars, or Lego Stars related, and then check back next week to see if you make the cut. First question comes from Cuddle Bloops, and they ask, a question I do have is, are there any sets you wish to see Lego publish, or do you think they should be left just as mocks? This is an interesting question because I think, like I've discussed in some previous weeks here, it is somewhat of a struggle for me finding a balance between, what things I'm perfectly capable of just accepting as a mock in my collection and things that I'm perfectly accepting of as sets in my collection. So things that at this point, where I've built so many things, whether it be my own design or other people's design, that I still do have some value in as sets. I think the Jedi Interceptors are one that pretty much, I'd really have to find a mock of that would have to knock me out of the park for me to want to build mocks of those. But I think I'm perfectly accepting of Lego just continuing to make sets of those. I think that the set versions of those look perfectly fine. And if I had to, I would probably use those in a mock. One set that I think Lego could really do a lot better than mock makers can at this point is probably a Naboo Royal Starship, specifically because they would have the ability to produce a lot of those pieces in a metallic silver or perhaps even a chrome silver color, just pieces that don't exist already. And I think at this point, there really is no excuse why Lego couldn't do it. I think before people would argue like, oh, it'd be super expensive for them to make all those unique parts just for that one set. But we're living in an age where Lego is literally like recoloring entire sets and releasing them as like normal sets, right? Like open to the market, at least in some regions. And like the Fiat 500, for example, they recolored so many parts and made brand new parts specifically for that one set. So using that logic, there's no reason they can't just decide to, make like a UCS Naboo Royal Starship. It doesn't even have to be massive, but if they wanted to do the whole thing colored in like their metallic silver color, if they just really don't want to commit to chrome, I think that sets like the Fiat 500 are proof that they are willing to invest the money necessary to make like a Lego set that consists like pretty heavily of a lot of brand new pieces. And then also combine that with the fact that Lego has just been producing a lot more metallic silver elements as of late. Like there's so many more in, the past few years than we've had pretty much, ever. So, I mean, we're getting more of those pieces and they're showing us more and more that they're willing to make sets that consist almost like pretty high amounts of very unique pieces. I think that there's no reason for them to not do a Naboo Royal Starship, especially given how prominent that vehicle is in episode 1, and considering we see, 3 other vehicles that look so similar to it in the other prequel films. Next question is from Joseph. He says, throw back to when Jay said, and I'll be back again very soon, and was gone for so long. I know, man, I'm sorry. I have no excuses here. I'm sorry, man. But his question is, now I know this might be too soon to ask, but do you have any clue of what you're going to build after Camino? Camino is definitely my favorite planet in Star Wars, and I can't wait to see you build it. I would love to see you build some other prequel location, maybe Coruscant or Felucia. I don't know, just some thoughts. Love your channel, by the way, and getting really close to having all the pieces for your gunship. Congratulations, man. It is going to be such a fun build. I've gotten some awesome feedback from that gunship. And of course, if any of you want to build the gunship for yourself, information for that will be in the description. Just shoot me an email and we can take care of it. It is a ship definitely worth having in your collection, especially if you're a fan of gunships. But as for your actual question, I know exactly what I'm going to build after Camino. Like, I've known this for quite some time. It's going to be more so, one of my bigger mocks. I think Camino was kind of my take a break mock, and it's kind of the pattern I've established. We went from Crate, which was a very large mock, to Vardos, which was still a big mock, but considerably smaller than Crate. That was my take a break mock. And then we went to Starkiller, which was my massively huge, just unreal big mock. And then we are going back to Camino, which is once again going to be my small take a break mock, a mock that I can fit all into one room. Some of you might know what the mock is because I've talked about it openly here on this channel. But I'm not going to go ahead and disclose that yet. There's no reason to get excited for my next mock when I haven't even started my current mock. But what I will say is the mock that I have planned after Camino is almost assuredly going to be my biggest mock ever. Like, I don't think there's any way for it to end up not being bigger than Starkiller, which is ridiculous to think about, and I get kind of scared thinking about it. But that one, that's going to be like a 2.5 year, 3 year mock. It's going to be that big. It's going to be that ambitious, and it is probably like the biggest passion project of mine to date. So if you want a little bit of hype for my next build, there it goes. But I think for now, we're going to focus on Camino. I have some really interesting and fun things planned for that build. And I think that even though, it's not going to be the biggest mock I've done, it might be the one that leaves the biggest impression on people, given the techniques that I have planned, giving the shapes that I'm going to have to achieve at such a large scale. You guys should be super excited for the Camino build. Next question comes from Christian Risk. He says, do you have any recommendations for displaying sets? I've got tons of sets. I love and enjoy displaying them, but they constantly get dusty. I've looked into Wicked Bricks and iDisplay for some ideas, but I'm curious if you have any other options. This is a good question. I have never used a Lego display case in my life. I wouldn't say they're not necessary, because obviously some people kind of love that aesthetic. But for me, like, I don't know. I don't like having a piece of like acrylic or glass between me and my sets. Like, any set I want to grab, I just like having the luxury of just walking over to it and pulling it right off the shelf. I don't want to have to deal with a display case and trying to get around it. And also, display cases just take up so much space. Like, you just get so much more like space efficiency on your shelf by not having display cases. That being said, as far as dusting, it's not a huge problem for me in this room. Like, some sets get dusty, sure, but I have carpet in this room, so, nothing really ever gets insanely out of hand. What I would recommend is just, like, whenever you are in your room and you decide you have some free time, take a brush like this and just, lightly go over it. I don't even know what the heck this is. It's just some brush that I found here in my house, but it works. You can get some really nice dusting done, make your set look almost brand new. And I think it's just kind of one thing you have to accept. Like me, I don't like get super concerned about dust. I just, whenever I pick up a set and it looks dusty, I wipe it off and I just kind of move on about my life. I don't know. It doesn't bug me. Like, do you guys get super like anal and bothered about dust? Like, does it just, I don't know, eat at you at night if you're just sitting there knowing like there's dust on your Lego sets on display? It doesn't really bother me too much. Like I said, if I pick up a set and it's dusty, I wipe it off, and then that's kind of how I maintain my collection for dust. But as for like display options to prevent it, like I said, I can't really recommend any display cases, because it's not really my thing. It's not something I would do. Next question comes from Darth Stormtrooper. He says, have you ever done a mock and then realized you could have done something different? This is such an interesting question, because there's so many different ways you can go about it. I guess I can interpret this as like, have you ever built a mock and realized like, oh, I could be doing better things with my life? I can't say I've ever had that like exact feeling. I do wonder though, like how much money I would have if I wasn't building Lego, if I just like kept my money and didn't spend it all on Lego. But then I wouldn't have YouTube, right? So like it kind of feels itself in a way. I don't know, but sometimes I do think about like, what the heck would I be doing with my life if I wasn't actively building mocks? The next way you can interpret this is like, have I done a mock where I realized like, oh, I probably could have built something different? Just like a different location or a different ship or something like that. Fortunately, I've never had that feeling. Like, I feel after I've done every mock, like the large scale ones especially, I felt very proud of myself and very happy that that's the thing that I decided to do and tackle it the way that I wanted to tackle it. And then the last way you can interpret it is like, have I ever built a mock and I was like, oh, I could have built this in a different way, which I think happens all the time. Like, especially when you're building mocks as big as I am and spending so much time on one given mock, like by the end of Starkiller, I felt like I was such a better builder than I was when I started Starkiller, which sounds crazy, right? But like, if you're actively spending time building and looking at builds and collecting sets and all that, like, you grow as a builder, whether or not you realize it. The more techniques you kind of put into your subconscious by even just looking at mocks, that is making you a better builder. That is just putting more tools in your toolbox. So, a lot of people ask like, oh, what can I do to be a better builder? And I think one of the easiest ways you can do it, other than just, buying sets and building, is just looking at a lot of builds. Like, go out of your way and, find some cool and interesting builds, and you'll see some techniques that you almost certainly have never seen or thought of, and then that will just give you more abilities and understanding of the way pieces work, and even just knowledge of pieces that exist that you can use later on when it comes to your builds. Next one comes from Frederick Pelletier. He says, do you plan on making a Republic dropship build one day? If I remember correctly, you said in one of your YQA videos that you would someday like to make your own ATTE, and I feel that would make an incredible combination of both those vehicles. Just wondering, keep up the great work. Can't wait to see what you do with Camino. Thank you so much, man. But yes, dropship is definitely one that I have to do, especially now that I've built the gunship. Like, they're so stylistically similar, I can't think of a reason to not do a dropship. And also just because, like, I love the dropship. Like, I love the gunship and I love the dropship. They're both just such awesome vehicles. But before I did the dropship, I would definitely want to tackle an ATTE. Like, for me, like, I wouldn't want to just have a dropship without my own custom walker to attach to it. So when it comes to, like, my plans for, my Clone Wars / Episode 2 era vehicles, obviously I got the gunship done, which makes me so happy. Like, I still just look at that thing with such fondness and appreciation. Love that build. But next up will for sure be the ATTE in that regard. And then after that, I would probably move to the dropship. Next question comes from Squidman. He says, what's a Lego Star Wars set or minifigure that you didn't know you wanted or needed until it came out and you saw it? For me, it would be Vader's Castle. For a set, it would be Car Dusai Malak, aka the Devaronian from the Massive Builder Series Cantina as a minifigure. Both are great. Those are some interesting choices. I think, especially in hindsight, the Vader's Castle isn't one that I think I needed. Like, I certainly could have lived without it. But I think it's more so just because I didn't love the concept of Vader having a Mustafar castle in canon. Aside from that point, yes, I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name again, but the Devaronian from the Master Builder Series Cantina is a wonderful figure. I thought about this, and there are a few things that came to my mind. One of mine that I really thought of, like, this is probably the first one that came to my mind, was the Poe from the Resistance X-Wing set, the gray one. Now, I knew, like, when the movie first came out, I was like, oh, it'd be cool to get a minifigure of Poe in the jacket, just because, it's kind of like his outfit initially. But one of the cool things about that set is it included Poe's original helmet, the one that he puts on when he's, like, trying to escape from Jakku at the very beginning of the movie. It's a very easy thing to miss. Like, it's not something that's super apparent, but the fact that LEGO included such a small detail in that set really, really made me happy. Like, because they could have absolutely just not included it, and I don't think anyone would have cared. But the fact that we got that figure was just so awesome, especially in hindsight, where, it's just one more helmet that you could throw on any Resistance pilot in your collection and give a little bit more variety to them. So that's really cool. Insofar as sets that I didn't know that I really wanted until they came out, there's two of them that come to mind. Well, actually kind of three. The first one is kind of a grouping of sets. During 2019, when LEGO gave us that mini Kashyyyk wave with the AT-AT and the droid dropship, like, when those first got announced, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, because I don't have either of those vehicles, but I wasn't super hyped because they had done both of those multiple times before then. But having those sets in my hand just made me so happy. Like, that droid gunship, I love that set so much. I think it is a beautiful Lego set. And the AT-AP, I think, is also a very nice Lego set. Like, I would love to have multiples of both of those sets. It just really got me in that Kashyyyk mood. So I definitely appreciated those. And then the other one that, I didn't even think it was a bad idea when it came out. Like, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But I didn't really see much value in it for my collection because I thought I had all those figures. But the Yoda's Hut set. So we got Training Luke, which was a figure that needed to be updated for sure. So that was cool. But we got the Dirty R2-D2, which was super awesome. Like, as many R2-D2s as they throw into sets, they could have just thrown another R2-D2 and no one would have cared. But the fact that they made him muddy was super awesome. And then lastly, like, it's the only, like, updated original trilogy Yoda that we've gotten in a set. So that's another thing I wasn't really considering when I heard about the set. But when it came out, I was like, oh man, like there's so much value in this set. 3 unique figures and 3 what I would consider to be useful figures. Final question today comes from M Brick Productions. He says, what do you think about buying custom versions of a fig that Lego has made? I think if you asked me this a few years ago, and I'm sure someone did ask me this a few years ago, I would have 100% just been like, no, purist is always the way to go, like no exceptions. And I think up until this point, that still is mostly the attitude I share, but with a few caveats. Because like, for example, I think the Lego Phase 2 Rex is an awesome minifigure. But then I got the minifigs for you, custom Phase 2 Rex, and that thing is just so much better. Like, it's kind of jarring just how much better it is than the official Lego figure. And like, it wasn't even something that I like outwardly asked for. Like, David just kind of sent it to me as a gift, which was really nice. But when I got it, I was like, holy crap, like I've been missing out. This thing is freaking awesome. So I think still for the most part, like if I can help it, the official Lego figure is the way to go. But I don't think I'm at this point as like closed-minded when it comes to customs, because obviously there are some really awesome things that people can do with customs that Lego just hasn't done. And one of the ones that I would 100% go for that Lego still hasn't done for some reason is any type of Rey figure with half sleeves. If there were a custom out there that were affordable, because I know there's one out there, but it's super expensive and I literally just need the arms, so it's not worth it for me right now. But I would still say that would be my preferred figure to use over the Lego one, because I still, at this point, feel like having the half sleeves is super important to a Rey minifigure. They clearly have the capacity to do it with the dual molded arms, and like that's just such an important part of her iconography. Like that's one of the consistent things about all of her outfits. So yes, half sleeves on Rey for a custom figure, 100% would go with it. I do still mostly lean towards purist figures, but I'm much more open now to custom figures than maybe I was a few years ago. And that's going to finish up the video today, guys. I hope you enjoyed checking out your questions answered. Once again, if you want to see one of your questions answered in the video, leave it in the comment section below. Make sure it is Lego, Star Wars, or Lego Stars related, and then check back next week to see if you made the cut. If you like what I do, go ahead and support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.